What's going on, everybody? It's Nick with Facemask Fantasy, about to fire off a 2023 Best Ball Mania draft, and the draft has already filled. I have the 6th pick out of 12. Not necessarily my favorite spot to start from, but maybe this is going to be beneficial for the purposes of the video. I will go through an elaborate thought process here, or as elaborate as I can hopefully get, to give you guys as much of my personal thought process here as the draft unfolds real time, give you guys some analysis as I choose my picks, how I construct my build, how I construct my team, figure all of that stuff out. Draft is starting in about 20 seconds. I could go Travis Kelce here. I could kind of choose another player, either a running back or a wide receiver here if I want to kind of deviate from Kelce, pick another tight end later. With this draft starting off shortly, we'll see who's available to me, and we will go from there. Obviously, you assume the Justin Jeffersons, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey of the world will go in the top 6. As soon as I say that, Bijan Robinson goes first overall. This is a Best Ball Mania entry, so you're going to see people be aggressive in this draft, and while that's not something I would typically do, clearly somebody believes in Bijan to the point where they want to take him first overall. That pushes another player down the board for me so that I can kind of go in a different direction here, and I probably will. I would love for Tyreek Hill to fall for me here, but he doesn't. I do think I'm going to go Cooper Kupp. I know he picked up an injury just a couple of weeks ago in training camp, but the long-term concerns around that injury are not too severe. I do believe he still has wide receiver 1 overall upside, so let's go ahead and lock him in. We'll roll the dice on a guy who was trending to once again finish as the wide receiver 1 overall last year before the injury cut his 2022 season short. So again, you're going to see people be aggressive in this format. This is the big tournament on Underdog Fantasy. It's a $25 entry, and there are almost 700,000 possible entrants. So you have to get creative with your builds if you actually want to make some noise in this tournament. We'll try to do that today. So of course, now that I have Cooper Kupp, I want to prioritize getting Matthew Stafford eventually at some point in this draft. Stacking is important, and also keeping in mind Week 17 matchups. Championship week correlations are crucial in this format. I believe the Rams play the Giants in Week 17. I'm going to look that up really quickly off camera right now. They do. They play the Giants, the Rams do. So I'm now going to want to target, Darren Waller, Daniel Jones, and some of his potential stacks at wide receiver at the end of the draft, in addition to maybe a Cam Akers or even a Tyler Higbee for the Rams. I won't obviously go out of my way to do that if I feel like there's good value on the board, but it's something that you want to keep in mind. Stacks and Week 17 matchups, because you're playing for your ceiling here. You're playing to maximize your potential output in these tournaments. Yes, it's fair to question, well, do you worry that much about Week 17 before the season even begins? With these types of tournaments, the answer is yes. You're trying to maximize your ceiling. You're playing under the assumption that you are just going for it. You're going to go as high as you possibly can. You're not worried about playing it safe in these tournaments. Now, there is good value here. Predictably, the guy who takes Kelce 1 pick after me stacks him up with Mahomes, but that leaves some good options here for me. So I've got 10 picks until my next one. I'm going to cue Jalen Waddle here. Yeah, I mean, there are some interesting running backs that I can have later in the draft. I don't have too many shares of Jalen Waddle, and I do believe in the Dolphins' passing attack. I'm going to go ahead. It's going to auto, but I have him queued. I'm going to go ahead and take Waddle there and just load up on wide receiver. Continue to look at running backs later in the draft, rounds 4, 5, 6. There is more of a running back dead zone, so to speak, this year than there are in other years, as drafters in best ball specifically continue to go with a modified zero RB approach, taking wide receivers sooner and more frequently. You start 3 receivers in this format. You only start 2 running backs in this format. So just by the nature of simple math, Wide receiver is something that a lot of drafters are prioritizing early and often over the running backs, and as a result, it has pushed a lot of running back value down the board. So we'll follow that trend with this specific entry and see how it plays out. I would have been perfectly fine taking Tony Pollard or Derrick Henry there. I do think Tony Pollard has colossal upside this year, but Jalen Waddle is a proven low-end wide receiver 1 that I can have at the end of the second round. We'll go ahead and lock him in. So again, you're going to see people be aggressive. Calvin Ridley is a late second-round pick. If you believe in the talent, previously Calvin Ridley was a guy who was getting drafted when he was with the Falcons much higher than his current ADP of around 28 or 29. So people aren't going to mess around in these formats. They're going to be aggressive, and they're going to shoot for the potential ceiling here. I don't think T. Higgins is going to get here to me. I have been taking a lot of Mark Andrews recently. I'm going to pass on him here. I think I'm officially going to opt for targeting Darren Waller later on in the draft. And whether it's T. Higgins or Breece Hall, that's where I'm going to go here. I'm either going to get some real strong options at wide receiver, or I will pivot. It's a long season with Breece Hall. I do believe in him. Obviously, the potential of Dalvin Cook getting added to that team throws a bit of concern into Breece Hall, but I still believe in him as a low-end RB1 for this year. This is a tough spot because now I have T. Higgins available to me here. I think I'm going to go wide receiver heavy to start this draft. I know Joe Burrow picked up a calf strain a couple of weeks ago, but it's a long season. He's not expected to miss any time, and there goes Breece, who I would have picked if T. Higgins had been taken before I could take him. But obviously T. Higgins is a low-end wide receiver 1 in his own right, and catching passes from Joe Burrow, that's a strong situation that I feel good about. I will, I guess, continue to punt, so to speak, on running back. I'll look to maybe get one with my next pick 7 picks from now. I'm not going to get Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going to be long gone, you would assume, in the next 6 picks. In fact, it's not out of the realm of possibility that I end up with a 4th wide receiver, which is okay because, of course, in this format, you still have a flex. So it's conceivable that any given week you start 4 wide receivers. I assume I'm not going to get Gibbs. I'm not crazy about ETN at his cost, but I would take a Drake London, a Mike Williams, a Terry McLaurin at this point. I could also stack with Joe Burrow because now I have T. Higgins. That is something I could do. And there goes Gibbs. I just missed out on him one spot ahead of me. I could also go Lamar. I do think I'm going to continue to pivot. Let's see. Waddle plays the Ravens in Week 17. Higgins plays the Chiefs in Week 17. There's no obvious Week 17 correlations here. I'm going to continue to attack wide receiver. Grab Drake London. I feel good about him this year. I do think he's going to have a much stronger season with marginally better quarterback play. He's got a year of seasoning under his belt. His draft mates last year, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, are long gone at this point. I think London's a pretty strong value relative to expectations and all things considered. I think I just let this guy build the Andrews Lamar stack, so good for that guy. Now, this would be, so there goes Burrow, so there goes any opportunity of a stack, which makes sense. This guy has Jamar Chase, so I kind of let that develop organically for him. I'm probably going to punt at this point on quarterback. I would love an Aaron Jones or a Kenneth Walker here to get my first running back. I can pivot off of wide receiver now that I've opened my draft with 4 straight wide receivers. It is an optimal strategy to have at least 7 wide receivers. Most of the teams that advance in these big tournaments have at least 7 wide receivers, and very many of them also have 8 wide receivers. So to load up on that position early and often, I feel fine about that. Obviously, you're drafting with some savvy people in these larger tournaments who know what they're doing. So there goes Aaron Jones. So I miss out on that opportunity. I would take 5th round Kenneth Walker, though, if he is available to me here, and I'll go ahead and queue him up. Just looking down the board in case he's not available. There's a good value here at quarterback in Justin Herbert that I really like. I could grab a naked Justin Herbert, but there goes Deontay, one of my favorite guys to also draft this year. But this wasn't a situation where I felt the need to draft him. I could use a running back at this point. I'm fine with 5th round Kenneth Walker here. I know there's some question marks about him with Zach Charbonnet having been drafted in the 2nd round. Plus, he had some injury issues this past year, but Walker was trending to be a 2nd or 3rd round pick prior to the NFL draft. Now his value is down. I'll take a shot on the 2nd-year pro in what should be a good offense and take Walker in the 5th round. As you're watching this unfold, happy to hear some feedback. If you guys care to put some comments in the chat, if you would have done something different than what I would have done at any one of my picks, happy to hear it. Happy to have a conversation about this. And, of course, if you agree with anything that I did, you can let me know as well. Always open to discussion here as far as how these things unfold. So as we navigate to the 6th round, there's still some good wide receiver depth available here, but I do have this guy kind of queued up, and it's Darren Waller. Again, the picks that you invest high in, you want to look at a potential Week 17 correlation. I took Cooper Kupp with my first pick. The Rams play the Giants in Week 17. So it's not just stacking that you want to look for. It's Week 17 correlations that you want to be on the lookout for. He is probably going to be a guy that I go down and grab a few spots ahead of ADP if I can. He should also lead the Giants in targets this year. They used a 3rd round pick to acquire him in a trade from the Raiders. With so many slot receivers in New York, Waller projects as the guy to lead the team in targets, and he's also the biggest guy. There he goes. Shoot. So I'm going to miss out on that opportunity. That's too bad. I can still get a running back here that I feel good about, a Cam Akers or a Dameon Pierce. I feel fine about these guys. I do also like either Kyle Pitts or Dallas Goedert in this range. I'm going to be a little aggressive here and get myself a tight end that I don't draft a ton of, but a guy that I still believe in, especially at his depreciated cost, and that's Kyle Pitts. So now I have both of the top weapons in a low-volume passing offense in Atlanta, but Pitts and London should be able to come through. They should dominate targets as the clear-cut top guys in the receiving game for Atlanta. Yes, this is a run-first offense. They want to run early, often, and also late and often in games. But Pitts is still a unicorn, had regularly been drafted in the 3rd round last year, even as high as the 2-3 turn. Now his value is down to around an ADP of 70. I think the market has course-corrected on him nicely. Go down, take a shot, be aggressive on a guy who has top 5 upside at a difficult position to project as far as tight ends go. Go ahead and be aggressive. Get him down here. There should still be some decent running back options available to me within the next 6 picks. Maybe not Cam Akers, but I feel perfectly fine about David Montgomery. Another guy I feel perfectly fine about going down and taking a shot on is Rachaad White. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and queue him up now. I really like Jordan Addison. I really like Jahan Dotson. Both of these guys are probably about to go in the next couple of picks. Addison just went. But having 4 wide receivers to start things off already, I should probably go back to the well with running back. I do like David Montgomery. I like DeAndre Swift. I like James Conner. But Rachaad White has a combination of youth and a lack of competition for touches in this offense. And while Tampa might not be very good, Rachaad White projects as a bell cow. and he's multiple years younger than James Conner. The wear and tear is not the concern with him the way it is with Rachaad White. I really like Dotson right here, but I'm pretty set at wide receiver, so let's go with a guy at running back that I'm really high on in Rachaad White. So I'm up again in about 12 picks. This is kind of a gross area, to be completely honest, but I do have Jalen Waddle. It's possible that the person who has Tyreek Hill goes and takes Tua, but I could stack up Jalen Waddle with Tua. That is certainly possible because my stacks, my Matthew Stafford to Cooper Kupp stack is not something I have to worry about for another few rounds. Dotson goes right after my Rachaad White pick. If I hadn't been so aggressive with taking 4 straight wide receivers to open the draft, I would have absolutely loved to take Dotson there. But because I felt good about the wide receivers I ended up with to open this up, I'll go down and grab a running back that I feel really good about. He's got clear-cut bell cow opportunity with the Bucs. This is a team going through a transitional year with either Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask at quarterback. I can't imagine they feel like they're in a position where they need to add a veteran running back like maybe a New York Jets or a Miami Dolphins who have competitive expectations this year. So I'm up in 4 picks. I have to say, I do really like Dallas Goedert this year. He is falling, but I already have Kyle Pitts. And this doesn't feel like that's not a bully tight end strategy that I necessarily want to actually chase after. So I unfortunately probably need to pass on Goddard here if he's available. I'm honestly hoping that this guy who doesn't have a tight end yet takes him. He takes Kamara. I will go Tua here if he's available to me, and he is because I have Jalen Waddle. Again, it's not just your first round pick. Keep in mind all stack possibilities here. So I'm going to take Tua. I have Jalen Waddle. Build your stacks when you can and be aggressive doing it. It hurts to pass on Goddard this late. I can't imagine he continues to fall. There's 4 guys in this range who all need tight ends, so somebody's about to end up with a great value. Goddard falling almost 20 picks below his ADP. Next up, there's some more good running back depth down here. I didn't get Darren Waller, so I'm not going to necessarily worry about Daniel Jones, especially when I just got to it, and I still intend to get Matthew Stafford to finish off the Cooper Kupp stack. While I do like Daniel Jones as a value at quarterback this year, Goddard, almost 20 picks below ADP. That's a great value. But I decided to be aggressive on Pitts. I do think his upside is worth rolling the dice on at his depreciated cost this year relative to last year. I'll roll the dice. Again, open to any feedback for anybody who does choose to watch this or watch at least a chunk of this. Let me know whatever feedback you may have. If you like a pick I made, I'm happy to hear it. If you don't like a pick I made, if you would have done something different, let me know. Always up to constructive feedback. Let me know what you would prefer to do. We can have a conversation about this. Let me know what you would have maybe done at any specific pick I had if you would have gone in a different direction than what I did. So just looking down the board, there are some really interesting names down here. I'm going to pass on Evan Ingram again because I already have Pitts. I'm going to continue to skip on these quarterbacks even though there is some decent value down here. I'm going to reach down here on Nico Collins and get a little bit more wide receiver depth and really just fill that thing out. I know Tank Dell is the talk of the town after having a really strong Week 1 preseason showing against the Patriots. But I do think Nico in his 3rd season projects as the number 1 option in this offense. As a wide receiver 5, that's a gamble I'm willing to take. Again, I have not, 9 picks from now. There is still some decent wide receiver depth down here, but there's plenty of interesting running back options that are pretty cheap that I can also take a shot on. I'm not holding my breath, but if Daniel Jones is available, even though I didn't get Darren Waller, there is still potential for, some Week 17 correlation just by the nature of him playing his Week 17 matchup against Cooper Kupp. And all of these guys in front of me do have quarterbacks, so that is likely to push some of these guys down the board some. If I can get, and there he goes, so never mind. That wouldn't have been a bad quarterback value there, but I decided to pass on it. Because I didn't end up with Darren Waller. And maybe you would have taken him anyway. That's okay. A guy who has fallen significantly, though I'm not crazy about Dalvin Cook, he's going to be on a team this year, and now he's fallen about 17 spots below ADP. I don't expect him to finish a full season this year like he did last year because it just hasn't been his mantra, but sooner or later, he's going to end up on either the Jets or the Dolphins, and that's going to be a good situation for him regardless. I could use a running back. I'm going to want to grab a couple of rookies or younger players to kind of counterbalance the fact that Cook is older, but he's going to be on a roster. It's just a matter of when, and he's not going to fall this far when that actually happens. I don't love that pick, but the value was decent enough to take a chance on. Nine picks from now. Now, this is a running back who I'm really starting to warm up to, Tank Bigsby. I like ETN. I don't love ETN. This new regime in Jacksonville, led by Doug Peterson, they did not draft ETN. That was the previous regime. They did draft Tank Bigsby, and Doug Peterson has a history of running committees in the backfield from his time in Philly. They spent pretty good draft capital on Tank Bigsby. He was a day 2 pick. If I can get him down here, I would feel just fine about that. I will say that's pretty good value on Zach Charbonnet going this late, but I have Ken Walker. And kind of the opposite thought process here in best ball. Stacks are important. Not taking handcuffs for running for backfields is also important. You want to maximize your potential ceiling. And that comes at the, sacrifice of potentially getting a good value at running back. But if you already have his running mate, you're trying to maximize your ceiling. You don't want to play for the floor play. Getting a entire backfield is a floor play, and that's not the move in best ball. You're trying to maximize your ceiling here. There goes Bigsby, two spots before I would have liked to take him. But I should still be able to get a good player here. I don't have a ton of shares of Jerick McKinnon. I don't have a ton of shares of Damian Harris. I like Jamal Williams, but I do think I can let him. I do think I could let him slide a little bit because the Alvin Kamara suspension is not as long as we previously expected it to be. I wanted to take McKinnon there. I don't know if I'm necessarily crazy about Damian Harris. I don't have a ton of shares of him, but I'll roll the dice. And then just looking down the board to see where Matthew Stafford is. I still have plenty of time to get to him. Yeah, he's got an ADP of 160. I can roll the dice, take somebody else with my next pick and let him slide to maybe my 13th pick, and then I can stack it up with Cooper Kupp. What I could do is potentially grab Van Jefferson and try to get a full Rams stack. The last stack I can plan to create is grabbing Desmond Ridder at the end of the draft. I have Kyle Pitts. I have Drake London, so I should go out of my way to grab Desmond Ridder at the end of the draft. Now, some quarterback values just fell, or just were removed from the board. This guy at the turn took Goff and Carr, so that takes some names off the board. I don't think Marvin Mims played in the preseason. He did not. Was that because of an injury? Probably. Oh, he was cleared. Okay, I mean, little strange. Rondale Moore is not a guy that I'm particularly high on. I don't know why his ADP is this high. There are some tight end values falling here. A lot of tight end options here. I'm going to take a veteran with some potential spike week upside in MVS. It's a murky wide receiver room in Kansas City. And catching passes from Patrick Mahomes. I'm not asking for much from my 12th round pick. If he can give me a few spike weeks, catching passes from the best quarterback in the NFL, I'll roll the dice on that. Now, maybe it would have been smart of me to just lock in Matthew Stafford at that spot. But there are a lot of guys at the moment who have 2 and 3 quarterbacks already, so and there's a run on tight ends going on. That's okay. Go ahead. Cue Matthew Stafford. The only reason I'm interested in Stafford at this very moment in time is because I have Cooper Kupp. Huge run on tight ends just now. But I have Pitts, and I drafted him a little ahead of ADP, so this is fine. There's a lot of tight end value down here that I am very intrigued in, but I've made my tight end investment. I did that earlier. I can still get another guy later on in the draft. As a tight end 2 option, who will be much cheaper, and you probably won't have to, the difference in value might not be too significant at this point. So I'm going to grab Stafford. Again, only reason I'm targeting in this specific situation is because I have Cooper Kupp. And so even though Kyler is enticing down here with a very depreciated ADP, and he's expected to play much sooner than later this year, I am going to wait until I can get Desmond Ridder in this specific situation because I grabbed both Drake London and Kyle Pitts. So complete the Falcons stack. The running back values have dried up, and I do only have 4 of those. Walker, Rachaad White, a teamless Dalvin Cook, at least for now, and Damian Harris. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite backfield collection, but there's still enough time to get some decent value down here. Like a Tajay Spears comes to mind. And again, with these types of tournaments, weird builds, the ones that you kind of almost feel like, did that play out the way I wanted it to? Those are the ones where you want to take your shots on because you're going up against hundreds of thousands, literally, of other entries. So you got to get creative with some of these builds. Actually, I wouldn't mind grabbing a Kendre Miller here. You know, he's fallen at this point. He's pretty cheap. He should get some run, especially in the second half of the season, as he gets up to speed. And I have Rashad White. The Saints play the Bucks in Week 17, so there's a little bit of Week 17 correlation there if I can get him in this very specific spot. All right, and he's available to me. I'm going to go ahead and just lock this in. And yeah, he's got a potential to get a little bit more run the first 3 games of the season while Alvin Kamara is serving his suspension. And the Saints spent decent draft capital on him. So it's possible that he has a role in some capacity all season long, even when Kamara returns. I try not to worry about bye weeks too much, but with Tua and Stafford having Week 10 buys, I do want to make sure that I lock in Ritter, who has a Week 11 bye. He'll at least be available that week, and I can stack him up with London and Pitts. Man, I'm not crazy about Rondale Moore at all. I'm not even sure if I have a single share of him this year, but if he's going to fall 40 picks below his ADP, then at that point I might just say, all right, it's worth a shot if he doesn't go in these next 2 picks here. The flip side to that, though, of course, it could also be a damning outlook on Rondale Moore if best ballers in this big tournament are that out on him. This guy might just auto into him. And he does. That's all right. I mean, it's potentially really good value, but it is what it is. I'm going to grab a 7th receiver here. Again, the Saints play the Bucks Week 17, and I'm not sure how much I believe in Michael Thomas actually being able to stay healthy for a full season. I know that Rashid Shaheed did pick up an injury, but I'm going to go ahead and take a shot on him there. Now, here's a guy I've kind of started to warm up to as a potential tight end, too, in Musgrave. Limited profile because of injuries and just somewhat lack of usage in college, but the athletic profile is spectacular for Musgrave, and he's clearly the most talented tight end option that the Packers have. They spent good draft capital on him. Man, Tank Dell all the way up to pick 180. He's certainly very intriguing. There's no doubt about that. But now his value is about to go all the way up because of a good preseason showing in Week 1. going to go ahead and cue Paris Campbell here. I do think he's going to be a big part of the Giants' offense, at least as far as the receivers go. And this would give me, actually, I'll cue Hodgins as well, just in case. I do think I prefer Campbell here, and this does give me a small amount of Week 17 correlation with my Rams stack, with my Stafford Cup stack. So I'm going to lock in Campbell. I think he's going to be a solid portion of what the Giants want to do on offense, provided he's able to stay healthy. So I have 8 receivers. I feel good about that. My last 2 picks are going to be I'm going to go out of my way to make sure I grab Ritter in the 17th round here. Take him a little above ADP, but lock him in because I have London and Pitts. And then I'll finish the draft off with whichever tight end is available to me. I'd be tempted to grab Musgrave, but at this point in the draft, with the Falcons that I have sitting there waiting, I want to make sure that I get the quarterback to finish off the stack. It's possible the smart play might have been to just take him in the 16th round and just lock it in. There are a couple of guys here. He only has one quarterback. So I'm hoping he takes either Stroud or Howell. But there are some quarterback options. This person just took Mariota. Interesting. Did they take Hurts? It must have taken Hurts. But again, that's not a strategy I would go with. You want to maximize your ceiling here in these tournaments. You don't want to take backup quarterbacks. Just one more pick, and I can lock in a full Falcon stack, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So right now, Underdog is not crazy about my team with this projection, but that's all it is, a projection. I'll finish this off with a tight end. So this is about to end, at least for me. Open to any feedback. If you guys consumed any of this, did you like what I did? Did you hate what I did? Are you in between on anything at all? Let me know in the comments. Let's have a conversation about this. Hoping that my thought process here allows you to take something away from this as you guys prepare for redraft season. We're only a couple of weeks from the season at this point. So I'm hoping that this exercise is helpful in that regard. But we are in the final round here. I am just going to finish off with a backup tight end. So an Isaiah Likely or a Trey McBride. I'd even consider a Mike Gesicki. But I'll probably, if Likely is here, that's who I'm going to grab because I do have a Dolphins stack, and the Dolphins play the Ravens in Week 17. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Isaiah Likely just got taken. So I'm not opposed to Mike Gesicki this cheap. He should get a bet, another opportunity to get back to some of the production he enjoyed with the Dolphins before Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle entered the fold. So I think there's a decent value here. I'm just now realizing he's got the same bye week as Pitts, so I'm actually going to pivot off of that. And I'll just grab Trey McBride. Zach Ertz is coming back off of a major injury. McBride is in his second season. I would have liked Gesicki there, but he has a Week 11 bye just like Pitts. So I'll diversify that one a little bit. So there's my team. It's probably going to be projected to be middle of the pack among these teams. But that's okay. They're just projections. But that's going to do it. This team is done. Quarterbacks, Tua, Stafford, Ritter. Stafford and all three were selected specifically because of stacks I could build. Running backs are Walker, Rashad White, Dalvin Cook, Damian Harris, Kendre Miller. We'll see about that and how that goes. I have my 8 wide receivers: Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, Drake London. I think that's a pretty strong start. That should be the strength of my team if everything goes as planned. Nico Collins, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Rashid Shaheed, Paris Campbell. And then at tight end, I did swing for the fences with Kyle Pitts and rounded it out with Trey McBride. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you didn't like. And we can have a conversation about this with redraft season on the horizon. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks, everybody.